Hey, Robert Spooner here. I'm in my studio and I wanted to give you a little introduction to me if you're not familiar with either myself or my work. I guess I started painting around 20 years ago, and I went to the Art Students League of Denver, and that's where I began taking courses there and just kind of working through some of the little modules that they had, some little courses, drawing and some basic painting and things like that. But I really didn't find, I found that after about, I guess, a year of being there, that I wasn't moving at the kind of the pace that I wanted to. So I kind of took fewer classes and really tried to learn on my own. And so most of my education is through just spending time literally struggling with paintings, looking online. I've done what I call reverse engineering painting, where I would take samples of other masters' works and try to reproduce them and try to literally think. I'd look at each brush stroke that they had put down and try to figure out how they put them down and in what order they had put them down. Richard Schmidt comes to mind, one of his little Italian pieces. After this process, somewhere along the line, I was starting to paint well enough that one of the galleries had noticed my work and asked me if I wanted to show there, and I had really never thought about that. So I had said yes, and my intention never was to be a gallery artist. It was just really to learn to paint and figure out why I couldn't do it, why I couldn't execute this any better. I could see the illustrations in the books and the magazines and always wonder, why couldn't I perform better? Maybe it's just something about me, but after years and years of practicing and discovering and trying to copy other people's work or reproduce similar themes or concepts, somewhere in there, I guess about 10 years ago, 12 years ago now, I had gone down to Taos and I got to visit Nikolai Fechin's, not only his home, but where his studio is there in Taos. I highly recommend the trip if you haven't had an opportunity to be down there. And looking at Mr. Fechin's work, I could see how complex the layers were. They had bigger, thicker strokes, thin strokes. The faces all had this kind of a smooth appearance to them, and beautiful execution of drawing on them. The colors, the composition. I was so impressed and so moved back that it actually changed the way that I thought, the way that I painted when I came back to Denver. I started to think to myself, well, how do I get a look or a feel like that without being a Fechin knockoff or something like that? So I started working with a palette knife, and I found that if I removed the drawing capabilities that I had with a paintbrush and started to use a palette knife, it took that a certain amount of control out of my hand. But by using the palette knife, I learned a whole new set of skills. I had to learn how to create the shapes, how to move that knife around in a way that I still had a product that was quite beautiful. The reason that I wanted to do this is because I needed to learn how to create these complex layers that I was seeing in Nikolai's work without reproducing those, without being that guy. And by taking and working with a palette knife, I started migrating or moving my product, my visual product, in a new direction. Years later, I started I guess just by luck of frustration, I guess, I started sanding down a particular painting, and then I saw what was happening as I sanded the painting down, all these beautiful layers and everything that were underneath it, the dry paint that was underneath the painting, all started to emerge, and I started to recognize that as beautiful information. And I started to say to myself, well, how do I use that information? How do I take what I am seeing here and maybe build back upon it and make a better product? And there was another step in my progress. Today what I do is far removed from the way that I first started at the Art Students League. I'm building these paintings with these complex layers. I'm not afraid to sand them down to almost to nothing or not being non-existent. Build them back up, sand them down, build them back up, and repeating this process. And somewhere along the way, I start to recognize, or the painting that is to be starts to emerge from this process, and I can recognize when the shape development, when the sanded layers, and when the repeat of putting paint back on, when it all starts to create a visual harmony that I can then take and follow that piece till its completion. It doesn't happen on every single piece. I have had some paintings in here. The Cowboy is a great example. I thought I had that piece done a year before its completion. I had set it aside. I took it out a year later, and it had so much varnish on it that I said, it's disgusting. So I started to sand it all down, but once again, as I sanded that all down, the true complex, beautiful visual layers that lie in between all of those layers revealed themselves. And I said, oh my goodness, as I started to dust it away, I said, there is the painting. So all I did to finish that up is I spent maybe an hour or two refining some of the shapes around, the light shapes around the head, and underneath the hat on that piece, just defining the upper edge of that. And it didn't take long to complete that. But a painting that I thought was done, I was mistaken. It wasn't, like I said, until a year later when I was trying to destroy that painting that the true finished piece revealed itself. So I'm not afraid of tearing a piece down. I'm not afraid of destroying it, because there's an evolution that I have learned to accept in each and every product that I produce, each and every painting, whether it's my new painting by RGB or some of the historical pieces or Farmer in the Fields. They each have their own growth, their own period, their own time frame in which to be created, which to be finished. I sometimes just feel as if I'm just a tool standing in front of the canvas waiting for the painting to appear. I still have paintings around my studio now that are in various stages of completion. Some of them will never get completed. Some of them, eventually I will find something that I'm working on that I'll look back over and go, oh, there's the direction for that particular piece. I know how to finish that, or at least start the process of completing that painting. So painting to me is more than just picking a subject, putting some brush strokes on it, deliberate brush strokes on it, and calling it done. Painting to me is about the evolution of any given subject that I may be working on at any time. As you may know, I paint a variety of themes, from cityscapes to historical pieces to a few landscapes. I do some contemporary kind of abstract, what I call color-filled pieces. Those too have evolved. Those have helped me to evolve even my newer figurative work. The textures that I created, the abstract qualities of those pieces have been migrated into my figurative works, and you will see that in RGB, and you will see that in Farmer in the Fields and some of the others. So as I grow as an artist, or as I migrate through my career, grasping onto or allowing these processes, these new innovations, these new experimental roads or adventures to be a part of my learning curve and my process has done nothing more but enhance the quality of my work, the output, each individual piece now. It's not just a painting. I really starting to believe that some of them are actually a work of art, and that's because of the struggles and the effort and the willingness to work with the paint and the medium and time. Literally time is a factor here. Not to rush the work, but to let the painting itself evolve from the canvas, and over time it will reveal itself. And through that process, I get to be very proud of the pieces that I call completed. And anyway, it's a little insider, I guess maybe from the emotional side of me and why I chose to follow this path of being an artist. And as time goes by, I hope to continue that. And I'm hoping that the evolution that I learn, I take from the past, migrated into the experimental work of the future, will continue to make more interesting and more beautiful finished pieces of art. And for those of you who I kind of consider fortunate enough to maybe own one of these pieces, now you kind of understand why I do what I do. For those of you who are young emerging artists or in mid-career or wherever you may be, this is an insight maybe to maybe a more seasoned artist and the perspective from which I have come from and maybe where I'm going. So I thank you for taking a few moments and listening to me. Thanks.